I want to thank Bethel and the clergy first for organizing these talks. We have such a rich community and so many resources in our own backyard. And also want to thank Gerald. She is amazing. If you see her emoji, you really get an idea of what she's like. She really can get connected to internet, talk to you, connect her kids. So she does it all, and we are also really, really happy to have her. So thank you, Gerald. Thank you very much. I am a child psychiatrist. I have done my residency at Children's Hospital in Washington, D.C., and I work at Children's for a few years, and I have been in private practice right now for more than 28 years. I don't want to count the years. I was trying to do the calculation, but I don't want to go into numbers. I was thinking really if we can have a conversation here. I would like to speak maybe for 40 minutes, and then I would like to open the floor for you to share your experiences and hopefully support for all of us. I think we all need support, and it could be great if we can pull out your brains and get our ideas. Talking about support, I just want to say that my sister is watching from Buenos Aires, and so we have people from overseas, and she has been support daily since I met her. You know, she's 2 years younger than me, but we're kind of twins. And also I see my husband there and my kids. So I think that the whole team is here. So thank you for your support there. I was thinking first to bring a picture of what adolescent is, and then to talk about depression during COVID and strategies to help our kids. When we think about adolescence in general, we may have memories of our own adolescence, but raising an adolescent is a completely different experience. Adolescence is a developmental stage where there are many changes. As you guys all know, there are hormonal changes, the body's changes, and the brain has alterations in neurotransmitters and cortical matter. Adolescents experience things very differently. The thought process becomes abstract, and they are interested in society, and we see gender changes. There is a sense of time and a concept of death differently than before. It's a time to experience new environments and to meet new friends. It's a time to practice independence, make decisions, and make mistakes. They feel omnipotent, but also at the same time, they may feel helpless. They have different types of relationships, and they may even start dating. They never feel okay. They have acne. They may complain about the size of their body or the body parts. The teenagers go to school. They struggle. They wake up in the morning. They run late to the bus. They attend classes, talk with teachers and friends at lunch. Many go to after-school activities such as soccer, baseball, dance, and music classes. And then during the weekend, they attend parties, concerts, or they watch sports. Last March, everything came to a sudden stop. High school kids, like all of us, had to adjust. It was hard to know what was happening. I remember the last week of March, the high level of stress we had in the environment. I don't know if you guys remember that time. I mean, I still remember, March 26th, a day there, the level of stress, people were running like crazy. And I always think that the fears were reflected in the anger, irritability, and short temper in the environment. Maybe the fears were also reflected in the lack of toilet paper at the stores. I always think that this may be a manifestation of a basic survival instinct. That's the first thing that goes first. I think that we hear fears, the toilet paper goes first. I don't know how are they related. We experienced the feeling that they didn't know what was happening and for how long. We all struggle to understand how to protect ourselves and how to protect our families. At first, what I saw in my office was that the teenagers thought that I was really fun. They didn't have to go to school, they sleep late, the school was not in place, but then things started to become very different. They couldn't see friends, they had no parties, it was not a normal vacation, and suddenly the reality sank in. They had to learn just like the rest of us about the pandemic, social distancing, mask, and hand washing. At home, things changed abruptly. They had to help with more chores. They had to eat every meal with the parents. That was something different. We didn't have kids eating twice, 3 times a day with parents. No weekends with friends. The parents nagged them more, and the level of stress began to increase. Then the high school seniors realized that there was not going to be spring break, prom, or graduation. The picture suddenly changed. The situation continued changing as we passed the summer and they all started the new school year. The new school year became with more Zoom classes, changes in the school system, and changes in the social life. It's important to point out that the families experienced the pandemic very different. I can see families and, it's day and night how different families are facing this pandemic. We have families that both parents had to work, and some had jobs that requires to be at the workplace, leaving behind at-home kids with no real structure. Some parents experienced loss of income. Some experienced the death of a loved one, unable to say goodbye to a friend. Parents that travel weekly, suddenly they stopped traveling and they were at home all the time, for better or worse. Parents that they were going to New York or going to places, traveling all the time, that thing stopped. So they were stuck with the kids at home. This was something new. These parents then had more time to observe the teenagers closely, and they had more comments to make about their grooming, eating habits, schoolwork, and video games. The parents wanted to participate more in their teens' lives, but the teens were not used to that, and they wanted their space. At home, the kids felt watched all the time, and they couldn't disappear like they had done before. No chances to go to school or at friends' home, no sleepovers, no summer camps, no traveling overseas, nothing. Can you imagine what is it to be an adolescent and not to have a place to hide? That's really very striking. Many teens went to the room. The room became a safe place to sleep, to study, and to eat. It was like their cave. They studied and slept in the same place. Many stayed in pajamas the whole day, not differentiating between the day and night. Normal routines were disrupted. They became isolated, not connected to some activities, or put in a screen to cover their faces. The way to communicate was texting friends during the long, boring Zoom lessons and playing video games as a way to maintain their social connectedness. Many adolescents complained that they were not getting what they needed. The time was passing by. And this is absolutely interesting. What is the effect of time in adolescence? How do we feel time? Because we also have an experience about time, not being able to go to weddings, bar mitzvahs, but what is it like for them, the concept of time? They were saying that they were missing irreplaceable, precious moments of their life, things that they came and they would never again would be able to live. They couldn't interact in person with friends, and they had to live in Zoom meetings and social media. So some they became more depressed as time progressed, not being able to regulate their emotions. And we saw kids going really from laughing to crying, really not being able to modulate their emotions. We need to remember that teens thrive with socialization, but they had to face restrictions, not seeing friends in person. They became bored, and there was a very different experience of time. The pace of life slowed down. It was hard to explain time. The weeks felt the same, not too many activities, nothing happening in their lives or in school. They described feeling sad, bored, and we began to see kids that would show no motivation, and the sleep pattern changed. Some kids play video games with friends till early morning, and they started to move their sleep pattern. That made it even harder to attend the Zoom lessons. They were totally sleepy the next day, not being able to attend the classes. Some teens felt that the video games were the only way to have a social life, and it became an issue of tension in the family. A lot of arguments with parents that they didn't agree how much video games the kids were watching. But the video games really is the perfect avenue to socialize and to socialize at distance. That's what they have right now. The tension has increased in the families and the parents have been becoming more upset. The reality is that the parents cannot provide the academic and the social stimulation that the adolescents need. And that's something I'm going to talk later on. I think we are stressed because we have to do a lot of things, but we cannot be teachers, cleaners, working full time. There is no way for us to be able all the things that we were not before, taking care of parents that are sick. The parents themselves, I see them absolutely overwhelmed with work. I see parents some parents at the verge of a nervous breakdown. The economic hardship, uncertainty about taking care of their own parents and not being able to visit them even of the holidays, that's putting a lot of burden on adults. Some families also, I saw them struggling to take care of kids that have disability, like autism. These are kids that suffer a lot with the COVID. These are kids that they couldn't attend school in person, and all the support activities that they need for their daily living were canceled. And that was another stress, that the parents had to be speech therapists, OT. That was an impossible task. The school couldn't provide the service that these kids needed, and the parents struggled to keep the home balance in spite of the clear emotional struggle. The summer went by, but as a psychiatrist, we experienced an increase of phone calls. Usually during the summer is a slow time, but this summer we didn't experience that. The amount of phone calls continue increasing day by day to us. When school started last September, we saw how freshmen had to adjust to virtual high school, not being able to know their teachers, peers, or to participate in music or sports. The sophomores had only a freshman semester of in-person high school, and the junior had stress about grades and college preparations. The seniors, difficult. They had to prepare for college admissions. There was not going to be college visits, and the SAT, ACT were canceled even the day before. So the level of anxiety of these kids was really, really high. The kids appear more isolated, and the severity of the responses right now is the worst since the start of the school year. The Zoom classes are exhausting, and the kids are expressing their dissatisfaction. And again, I'm talking as a psychiatrist, and I'm talking what I see in my office. I also want to say that there is a small group of kids that have adapted very well. There is the kids that have social anxiety, that they feel safe at home, and some kids with attention deficit disorder had the chance to be in a place with less external stimulation and less intensity of the work, and some of them are doing better. But the larger population saw their grades drops, and some even suffer eating disorders and depression. So now I want to switch gears a little bit, and I don't know if Gerald, you want to help me to, that's okay, I understand. You want to put the slides? We're ready.
Sorry about that. We had a little happy napper issue. Let me get the slides.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about depression in adolescents. Next slide, please. I don't know if some of you are interested in numbers, but I just want to talk about depression, and I want to say how prevalent major depression. Major depression is that the more severe of the depressions that we can have, and the prevalence between 4 to 8% in adolescents. Females have a higher ratio than boys, and between 5 to 10% of the children and adolescents have some kind of subsyndromal, mild symptoms of major depression. Next slide, please. I looked into these numbers, and I found that the CDC reported that there has been an increase of emergency department visits of adolescents between 12 of 12 to 17 years old, there has been an increase of visit by 31%. So here we see the numbers, how really the effect of the COVID had on mental health. Next, please. I want to talk in general about depression because I want you to be aware of depression and COVID. And I think I want to review some of the symptoms for you to be aware if you notice this at home, to kind of to be able to differentiate between what is expected and what is more diagnostic of depression. The first thing I want to point out is decreased interest. We can see that they don't want to talk or to attend classes, and they show less interest in activities they used to enjoy. For example, you may see that they are not calling friends, they are not leaving the room. Activities that they used to enjoy, they stop showing interest in those. And they complain of feeling sad. And, they can describe different emotions. They can say that they are depressed, they are sad, they are down, they don't want to do anything. And we see alterations in the sleep. And we can go to the two extremes. We can go like they cannot fall asleep, or we can see that they sleep longer hours. Like, they cannot get up to attend the classes, or they take naps in the middle of the days. We really see that the sleep structure has been disrupted. And we see a lot of kids playing video games, texting till late, watching YouTube, talking to a friend, and then in the morning it's very difficult for them to participate in the Zoom classes. Fatigue, I mentioned that. And then alterations, the appetite, the same like sleep. We can see decreased appetite or voracious appetite, that they start eating large amounts of sweets or junk food. Now they're at home the whole day, so the food is more available. So that's another symptom that we are seeing. Next, please. We see alterations in concentration and executive functioning. You had the first talk about ADHD, and here there is comorbidity of symptoms. The kids are unable to finish work or simple finish task. And then, very common symptom of depression is low self-esteem. They have negative statements about themselves, and you can hear that they're saying, nobody likes me, I'm horrible in school, I don't have friends. And one of the things I want to define that I'm thinking maybe you could ask me later on is the importance of how long the symptoms are happening. It's 2 weeks, it's 1 day, how long they are experiencing the symptoms. And the other thing that is really important is how much this is interfering with the social work, with the schoolwork, friends, and family life. And the persistence of the symptoms is a red flag. I put here suicidality because talking about red flags, that's something that if you have a child that is suffering from depression, that should be in the back of your mind. In the past, we thought that talking about suicide would precipitate suicide. And now it's more clear that if you are able to bring that up, like, have you ever thought about hurting yourself? Have you ever felt hopeless? Is there a part of you that doesn't want to leave? All those kind of things can open up the child to be able to talk about their feelings, and maybe that could help the child and the family to get the help that they need. I also want to say that that talking about suicide will allow the child to share their pain and sorrow that they have, because when there are suicide thoughts, it's almost like the amount of pain, it's overwhelming. It's really, they are unable to really process all that is going on inside them. And also to keep in mind that there is a high risk of suicide if there is a history of impulsive behavior or drug abuse. That's also to be aware. Next slide. And that's another slide that I found that I kind of want to remind how difficult COVID has been for kids and for all of us. The closure of the schools, the stress about the closure of the schools, not being able to do things that I enjoyed to do, the anxiety, depression. And I was talking to Gerald before about the duration of the lockdown. How long this is going to be. Is it going to get better? Is it going to get worse? How long do we see the light at the end of the tunnel or not? Is there a way for kids to go to school in person or not? Tons of questions that at present we don't know. Next slide, please. One thing to keep in mind that when we talk about kids with depression, usually there are some comorbidities in the kids, and it's very hard for us to see just depression or anxiety. We always see symptoms of ADHD, anxiety mixed with depression. Kids that have autism also suffer from depression, anxiety, and ADHD. There is a history of drug abuse. Some kids were abusing drugs during high school, and now they can't because they are not close to friends or to peers. So the access to drugs have decreased, and we have seen that also. And there are family stressors. If parents are divorcing or parents are divorced, there are two parents not living in the same household. If somebody has died, if they're not able to see the grandparents. And as you know, being an economic underprivilege is a factor of stressor. And the same thing I was talking before, the longer the quarantine, the longer the isolation, the more affected our kids are going to be. Quickly, Danny talked about this last week, but also want to show you how frequent anxiety is. 7.1% of the children have a diagnosis of anxiety disorder, and between 0.25 and 4% of the children and adolescents have a diagnosis of obsessive compulsive disorder. So this is something that we were seeing before, even before COVID. The kids that have anxiety, and I'm talking about the comorbidity also between anxiety and depression, they're showing a lot of anxiety about, I'm going to get COVID, I need to be careful, I shouldn't go out, or I want to go out, but I don't want to, I want to go out, but I don't want to bring COVID, I can get my parents sick, my mother was suffering a chronic illness, she can die. So there is a lot of anxiety about what COVID can produce on themselves or on their families. Anxieties about school cancellations, the Zoom classes. I see the kids really exhausted right now. They, hopefully this week school is going to come to an end, and hopefully they can really take a break. But right now they are OD with Zoom classes. And then there was the anxiety about the exams that they were ready to take, and then they were canceled. They don't know what's going to happen. They don't know what college is going to be. So this is what we are dealing with right now. But the OCD kids, that's some examples about OCD that, the same, if we are talking about hand washing, these kids were already hand washing. These kids already had fears of dying, and these kids already had obsessions about having enough supplies, masks, or, things to really take care of themselves. So all these things we have seen exacerbating during the pandemic. Next. And I think this is the most important thing. I think this is the only thing I really want to talk. And really, this is why I would like more of a conversation at the end. Next slide, please. And this is something that you have heard, but I want to bring how important this is. In terms of stress, we forget to take care of ourselves, and we live in a survival mode. More than ever, parents have to do so much. At this moment, it's also important to set boundaries. What you can do and what you can't do. You need time for yourself. You cannot be with your child the whole time. To really set boundaries, it's really important for you and for your family. I have seen people that they were traveling, that right now they are working like in 2 time zones at the same time. And now it's worse because before they were traveling, they were in Europe, but at least they had to accommodate during the plane. But now they're working in 2 time zones at the same time. And that's pretty exhausting. Plus, turning the phone, taking care of the family, that's really exhausting. Sleep and exercise, you guys know, Bethel is a very exercise community, and, sleep also, it's hard to get sleep during the pandemic. It's hard to sleep with all the anxieties and worries that we have. but it's something that we always need to go back to the basis and to put in place. Disconnect from the computer and phone. I mean, we're asking our kids to do that, not to bring the phone to the table, but it's really important that we do not bring the phones to the table, and at least during meals and the family time, to make a free zone that we don't have all those things, electronics there. Come to the table with news. Don't, leave for later the number of people that died and how many new cases are. I think that if you can come to the table with, something interesting to discuss or to talk about, that's going to be much better for all of you. Next slide. This is another thing that I want to leave with you. This is a time to learn to communicate and to listen. I don't want to give advice. I don't give advice, but I think that this is a good time for us to move away from long lectures and to try to engage with our teens, to try to see if we can be interested in what they do. If they are playing video games, to try to see, what are the video games, even though if you don't care, if you're not interested in that video game, I would try to spend time to see what is that captures their attention. The same with Netflix, if they are watching, Say Yes to the Bride, just watch that with them. Show that you're interested and, you want to know what they are doing. Move away from grades. I know parents are very, very worried about grades. I know we are all type A, but this is not the time to really nag them about grades and grades going down. There is more time and hopefully more opportunities to talk for us to COVID. Maybe in the future we will not have so much time. You are watching them, but I want you to let you know that also they're watching you. So they have more opportunities to get to know how you communicate. If they hear you on the phone in a meeting, screaming at coworkers or people that provide services for you, that's also going to be a learning lesson for them. Be aware if you lose your temper and how do you work on that? Are you fighting with your partner? This is a good moment to think about it, and it's a good moment for us also to work on our emotions. This will be a more lasting teaching lesson than all the lectures that you could be. To really show them with example, I think it's going to be a much better, long-lasting lesson. In schools nowadays, they don't teach us about feelings, pain, suffering, loss, frustration, and how to deal and learn about it. Life is the one that teaches us about pain. And maybe this is a good time for all of us to really talk about feelings, learn about feelings, and to stay with the feelings and to see if we can work with them. Next slide, please. So now about the kids. So I guess I was able to show you that depression is real, it exists, we need to take very serious. And I think this is a really good time to really engage with the kids, to engage and to respect boundaries, to give them space, but also when they come down, when they want to talk to you, to be there. Don't leave them alone. If they show up and they come to talk to you, be with them. And like I said before, to really learn to really learn who they are, what are their interests, and what do they like to do. It's important to provide routines for yourself and for your family, and to provide structure. You guys can take the trash on Wednesday night, or one of the kids could be making a meal, like probably that is happening in my home tonight. Remember how important are social interactions. So just remember that in some ways you have to facilitate that, and maybe your family can talk what is the best way to facilitate that. Next, please. And I wrote here some activities, but I'm really want to hear from you other things that you have done and they have worked, and that's what I'm really hoping, that this could be a good support for us, and we can leave this talk with more ideas and more things to think about that. And one of the things I have been seeing that is, I put your work because I have a patient that I have been seeing that he's building a shed with his dad. But the other thing I have been seeing kids that I have kids that they are very interested in sports and they would never have play music. Suddenly I see them, playing piano or taking dance lessons. I think I see kids that they are switching interests or they have like a wide, more interest than they had before. This is a good time to finish those drive-based lessons, and I think that a lot of kids are doing that for what I heard. Games, it could be video games, it could be board games, community service, there are tons of opportunities. Audiobook is a great thing because you guys could be in the same room, could be in the car, and there are tons of great books or YouTube videos to watch together. Podcasts, there are tons of podcasts to watch together. And two things that I think it's really, really important not to be judgmental. Don't try problem solving. Our natural way of parenting is as soon as we hear our kids struggle, to jump in and to try to find out the solution that I'm sure we know so well. But this is a good time just to learn how to listen, to talk less and to listen more. I think that could be a good thing to come out of the COVID. Next, please. So always, I talk between what is expected and with what is not expected. If you have any questions, call your pediatrician, see psychological help, see psychiatric treatment, and to try to educate about mental illness. Next slide, please. I think that one of the lessons that we learned from COVID is that the limitations in our health programs. I think we thought we were much better than we are. And I think the limitations also are coming out, not only in the medical field, but also in the psychiatric field, because we are unable to provide the services that these kids are needed right now. And we really don't have really good outpatient intensive programs. I'm not saying even inpatient, more outpatient programs for kids that have difficulties in attending a regular schedule. So hopefully after COVID, we will be able to look into that and to come up more of ideas on how to have more access to mental health and for more people to be able to get those services. And the other things we are learning, and I am learning because I didn't do that before, is telehealth. And we have more access to people, we have less show-ups. If one of my teenagers forgets the appointment, I can text him right away and they can log in. And before that could have been a no-show, and we have more access. And we have more access to see where they are, if they are in the room the whole day, if they haven't changed their clothing. I mean, we have more access to see that also. Next slide. No, there is one more. Okay. No, okay. Well, there was one more that didn't show up, but it's more about, there are two more that, I don't know, but don't worry. One was life after COVID. I'm thinking a lot, and I'm trying to, where are we going to be a year from now? What's going to happen? What are the lessons that we learned from this? And I would love, for us to be together a year from now and to talk about what we see. That slide, the one before. That one. No, I'm sorry. No, that is not. I'm sorry. I thought that was the other one. I'm sorry. That one. What will happen after COVID? Right. And that was the question. What will happen after COVID? What do you guys think? What did we learn from this? And what do you think we are going to come out of this with what lessons? And these are resources that I wrote for you: how to seek help, 24 hours emergency service. But that's it. I mean, that's what I wanted to share.